Welcome to Bellman Woodworking and Designs. Today we're going to look at how to build one of these, a cube organizer. Complete with 9 shelves, you can fill with crates or just leave open and shelves. So let's get to it and let's check out how you can build one of these yourself.
Shall we begin? Alright, so for this project I used 2 sheets of 4x8 plywood, and for the outside I did use Baltic birch plywood, the hardwood plywood that they sell. I believe I bought it from Home Depot, so it's about 50 bucks for a sheet. But I used that and first cut everything down to size with my skill saw there, the circular saw. And you can see I did put those crates down to the ground just to help support the wood, because that was a big chunk of wood I was cutting off and didn't want to just fall off or break off. So I cut everything to roughly about 15 inches wide. The total depth of the shelf was going to be about, or width of the shelf was going to be about 14 inches when it was said and done. So I gave myself some extra room, both on the width and the length on these boards, just as I was cutting the rough lumber. And then I went back with the table saw and with the miter saw to chop everything down to the exact sizes that I needed. So again, the width of the shelf ended up being about 14 inches wide. The total height was about 44 inches tall. I bought crates from Target first. My wife liked, we picked those out, and once we picked out the crates, and that allowed me to design the rest of the shelf around those so we could make sure we have crates and spots for those crates that fit exactly with the actual crates that we bought. So at this point I cut all the sides and middles of the shelf, everything except for the shelf dividers down to size. And again, those were all around 44 inches, but the outsides were a little bit taller than the inside to allow room for the dados that I would cut to the boards later. So this is the second sheet of plywood that I bought, which is not hardwood plywood, but it was just going to be the shelves, and we're putting crates on top of that, so I wasn't too concerned about them getting tore up. So I saved some money and got this sheet of plywood for about $40. So the total cost of the project runs close to $100 with tax, but if you wanted to, you could build this cheaper and probably get the whole project done for about $80. So right here I am cutting the shelves out, and again those are about 14 by 14 inches. So it's a square shelf, it fit in that square space. And I actually ended up cutting more of these than I needed. I only needed 6, but I cut 9, so that's what I'm doing here, is cutting some extra shelves that I didn't need. But again, it's always good. Those 4x8 sheets of plywood are big, and this was all 1/2-inch plywood, so it's just better, in my opinion, to take the circular saw to the plywood versus trying to run the whole piece of plywood over the table saw itself. Now with these shelves, I did the same as before. I originally cut them longer than I needed. That way I could take them over to the table saw and cut them the exact length and width for the actual shelf when they would go in. I just felt that was easier to do, and that way I wasn't working with as much, and I knew I could get a more exact result by running them all over the table saw to get the exact length and width that I wanted. Alright, once out of the shelves cut, I did go back and had to make an insert for my dado blade. And I know some of you up here are going to watch this and say this is not safe or it's not the right way to do it. At this point I didn't have a sled of any kind, and I really just want to get the product done, so this is just what I did. So I set the dado blade for about 1/8 of an inch. The shelves were I think approximately 11/16 of an inch thick, so that's what I set the stack for. But the depth was cutting it right at 1/8 of an inch, so I had already plotted out where all those dados needed to go. And the nice part, since this was a square project, was once I cut one end with one dado, I could flip the board over and cut the other end, because I knew it had to be square to the other side, so that was nice. So I did cut dados in the top and the bottom, and on the left and right sides, and then also I had 2 long pieces for the middle that I had to cut dados kind of near the top and bottom, and on both sides, which is why I only did 1/8 of an inch dado. I knew that'd be strong enough for what we were going to use. We were only going to be putting toys in the shelf, but that plus the combined strength of the whole shelf put together, I knew it would hold everything fine. So I did go and make all those dado cuts, but again, just always, if you watched any video about cutting dados, always test what you're doing in a piece of wood first, which is what I did, because there are lots of shims with dado stacks. Don't always trust the diagram. It may tell you that you add 2 blades, 2 chippers, and one shim, but definitely tested out on a piece of wood. So I made multiple test cuts before ever making the final cut for that. Now on here on my outside boards, I also cut dados just so they would have notches where the top and bottom boards fit into. I wanted everything just to fit into itself and fit into one another. That way it would be more structurally sound. So I did go sand everything down after that with 220 grit sandpaper, just to make sure all the pieces inside and out were smooth and would be good to paint or to stain. Now on the outside boards, I did use 1-inch drywall screws to hold everything together, but to make sure the screws were covered up, which is one of the reasons I built this whole project. I used a dowel drill bit to cut out spots for these screws to go. That way I could go back later and cut out some dowel rods and cover those screws up, just so you would have a seamless look all the way around the shelf, but it would still be structurally sound. At this point I was gluing everything together, and I did glue everything up and get everything into place before clamping it. It was able to hold itself together pretty good, and the dados worked great. So everything was able to go into place. Now, as you can see here with my clamps, I didn't actually have a clamp that was greater than 44 inches long, so I made, just using some of the scrap plywood, I drilled holes into each side where I could connect the two clamps together and then clamp it in. So that might be a good resource for you if you're ever trying to clamp something that's bigger than the actual clamps that you have. And it's just a good idea to hold things together. Over here I just put glue on all the shelves before putting them in, and glue, you will end up with lots of excess glue, but that's okay, just wipe that off with a wet paper towel or your hand or whatever, and fix that. I will suggest, and I don't know,
this is not a drill.
A better idea, again, is maybe someone could leave this in the comments below. The best flat surface that I had was my garage floor at this point, where I could be willing to get glue and things on it. But one thing I did notice, and I had to go back and kind of correct for later, was not all the shelves wanted to slide in evenly. Or some went stuck out a little further, some went down a little further, and so it was difficult trying to make sure all the shelves stayed square as I was putting those in the floor, because the floor isn't completely level. Right here you are seeing I went and bought poplar wood and cut that off to be edge banding all around the outside, because I really didn't want to have all the plywood showing, and I thought about just getting the actual edge banding that you can iron on, but I decided to do hardwood instead. I just thought that would last longer and do better. Now as you can see, I did paint the whole outside. I didn't show that, but I did paint the whole outside gray, sanded between all the coats to make sure there was a clean and smooth finish. After I did that, then I stained everything. This is a candlelight stain, so brown, but just has kind of a really warm feel to it. So I really wanted that outside painted and the inside stained. I thought that would look great. Now on this edge banding, I did paint all the edge banding first and then went back and attached it all. I just didn't know of a better way to do that. So if someone knows a better way to make sure you're not getting spray paint all over everything, but keep that look, please let me know. So this is the final step, and everything turned out great, and we love our shelf.
Alright, so here is the completed organizer. It has 4 crates that we use for toys, and the other 5 spots are open for shelves that we can use for anything that we need. So I hope this inspires you for your next project. You can maybe build one of these to go in your bedroom, in your living room, somewhere in your house like that. And I do want to give credit to the paint job that's on here. The paint job was inspired by Shop Built, by some end tables that he was building for his wife, and I thought the stained look with the painted outside was a great idea. So I do want to give credit to him in that below, and I'll put a link to his video down below too, as well as on the card. So again, hopefully this inspires you. Have fun doing your next project, and I'll see you next time.